of that case, and if there has been a ruling, why has my office not been provided a copy? So thank you very much, Director Mueller, for your service, but also for helping me get to the bottom of some of these things.
Thank you very much. Director Mueller.
Attacks. Turning briefly to that which was mentioned, that is cyber. The cyber threat has evolved significantly over the past decade and cuts across all of our FBI programs. Stop current attacks and prevent future attacks. And cybercrime requires a global approach, and through our 64 legal attaché offices overseas, we are sharing information and coordinating investigations with our counterparts. Finally, on this particular point, we recognize that the private sector is an essential complex white-collar fraud to transnational criminal enterprises and from violent crime to public corruption. And given the limited resources, we must focus on those areas where we bring something unique to the table. For example, violent crime and gang activity continue to exact a high toll on our communities, and through Safe Streets and Safe Trails task forces, we identify and target the most dangerous of these criminal enterprises. At the same time, the Bureau remains vigilant in its efforts to find and stop child predators. Our mission is threefold. First, to decrease the vulnerability of children to exploitation. Second, to provide rapid, effective response to crimes against children. And third, to enhance the capabilities of state and local law enforcement through task force operations such as the Innocent Images Initiative and the Innocents Lost Initiative. Now, let me pause for a second and spend a moment discussing the recent public disclosure of highly classified national security programs. The highest priority of the intelligence community is to understand and combat threats to our national security. And we do so in full compliance with the law. We recognize that the American public expects the FBI and the intelligence community to protect privacy interests, even as we must conduct our national security mission. The FISA court has approved both programs. These programs have been conducted consistent with the Constitution and the laws of the United States. The programs, as we heard yesterday, have been carried out with extensive oversight from the courts, from Congress, and from independent inspectors general. And these programs do remain classified, so there are significant limits on what we can discuss this morning in an open session. I do know that there have been classified briefings on these programs for Senate members over the last couple of weeks, and I hope most of you, if not all of you, were able to attend. And if you were unable to, I would suggest that and encourage you to do so. As to the person who has admitted to making these disclosures, he is the subject of an ongoing criminal investigation. These disclosures have caused significant harm to our nation and to our safety, and we are taking all necessary steps to hold accountable that person responsible for these disclosures. But as this is a matter actively under investigation, I cannot comment publicly on any of the details of the investigation. Now, in closing, I would like to turn to sequestration. The impact of sequestration on the FBI's ability to protect the nation from terror cuts will impact our ability as an organization to prevent crime and terrorism, which will impact the safety and the security of our nation. And I will say we all understand the need for budget reductions, and we are going through a thorough review of every dollar spent. We have to know and be in their communications. Having the ability to identify a person in the United States, one telephone number with a telephone that the intelligence community is on in Yemen or Somalia or Pakistan or what have you, may prevent that one attack, that Boston or that 9/11. And so on the one hand, yes, it is relevant evidence. Yes, it is critically important that we have that link. And then the question is, when you legislate it and you have this vast volume of records, how do you appropriately give oversight at the Justice Department, in the National Security Division, in the Inspector General's office, through the FISA court, and through Congress? And I think anybody who looks at these programs wants to make certain they are legal, that they're effective, that there's appropriate oversight because it does raise national security and civil liberties concerns. But once you look at that, and once you identify it, then are you going to take the dots off the table, make them unavailable to you when you're trying to prevent the next terrorist attack? That's a question for Congress.
Well, the way I looked at it, particularly with Nazibullah Zazi, was that this was an attack which could have killed hundreds, if not thousands, of people, that he was not going to be the lone perpetrator, that we know there were at least two conspirators who were going to participate in it. We know about other things that showed that there were going to be more people. And it seems to me that if we weren't able to protect it, and the New York subway were blown up in a number of different places with hundreds of people or thousands of people literally being killed, that there would be no question as to its value and worth. I have come to believe that the only way we prevent these attacks is good intelligence. How do you get good intelligence when likely one of the conspirators is in another country connected with a terrorist group, and one is in this country prepared to carry it out? So, to me, the value of those programs in preventing loss of life in this country is substantial. Here is the question. Because you have that 10 to 12%, do you think it would be possible not to collect the database, but to be able to query the database if the time for keeping that database was extended to 5 years with the phone companies?
I know Keith Alexander and others are looking at the possibility of restructuring the program in this way. In my mind, there are two disadvantages, maybe three. First of all, there is no records retention requirement on telephone companies at this point, and they are all over the lot. Some may do it, and I throw this out, 18 months, some may be less, some more. And in that database that they keep will be those numbers that are calling the suspect numbers overseas. Secondly, if you have a number in Yemen, that would require you to go to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 particular carriers with separate legal paper and require them to come and pick up what they have collected and are keeping there and get back to you. The point being, it will take an awfully long time. And in this particular area, when you're trying to prevent terrorist attacks, what you want is that information as to whether or not that number in Yemen is in contact with somebody in the United States almost instantaneously so you can prevent that attack. You cannot wait 3 months, 6 months, a year to get that information, be able to collate it and put it together. Those are the concerns I have about an alternative way of handling this.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it 10 or 12 cases or 10 or 12%?
We have 10 or 12 cases. I should have
10 or 12 cases.
Yes, and some of them are some know two. I'm not certain whether all of them are 215. They're a combination or one or the other.
I see. Thank you. One other quick question. If people are concerned about privacy, I think the greatest threat to the privacy of Americans is the drone.